Let's fucking go.
40.
Kind of one of the worst hands. I'm going to VPip here on the button. I obviously could 3-bet this at a low frequency, but I think that VPipping through a call is kind of nice. Yeah, let's not overcomplicate the situation.
Call.
This might be the fight for the Dominica flag behind us. So I don't have a club in my pocket pair. Chin is gonna have some board coverage going forward on this texture. That being said, I could start checking here to have coverage in my range and not get easily blown going forward. Yeah, I'm gonna simplify my decisions and just go ahead and check. So I can have coverage if the board starts getting bad. If it runs okay, favorable for me, I'm largely going to be check raising on the turn to attack and force him into spots with his 8x flush draws, 7x type of hands that is going to continue here.
So threes with a club here. Can stab for some protection, can also check back. However, I have a lot of better hands that are valued here. So like we do get check raised at a higher frequency when we have threes. But at the same time, getting check raised off threes isn't exactly that crazy. It's not like I'm getting blown off a lot of equity. I do shut down a certain frequency of his range, hands like queen jack, things like that. I don't necessarily know if he's constructing check raise range appropriately that scales down check raising tens through aces using like a reverse scale where tens check raises more than aces in like a gradient way. So that means that I get to bet kind of freely here, and then I also, given the fact that I have the 3 of clubs, will allow me to potentially turn a clean 3 when I do. And if he check raises, that's not that big of a deal. We could potentially find some bluffs on maybe like a 6 or something like that, assuming he check calls some ace kings. So let's begin with a bet. The hand's pretty low in my distribution anyway, and I feel very comfortable folding to a check raise if it does come in. So he opens a 40 plus the blinds, pots at 95 right now. I think starting with a bet that represents kind of a catch-all size here is going to be pretty nice. So 40.
So yeah, so I anticipated this. He's incentivized to bet a lot with his range. Again, he's gonna have coverage, so pending what the turn is, we're largely gonna be defending. Even if it's close cards like the 10, I'm still gonna largely be check raising since it gives his range a lot of pair plus, open-ender, gutties type of hands, and we're just gonna force him into spots to play for stacks where he has a lot of equity, but I'm largely ahead, so see what happens on the turn. So it's an interesting card. It's not the worst. It definitely allows me to beat his 2 pair, which is 8-7. Still losing the sets, obviously. It reduces the sets of deuces. Most of his flushes complete, which is going to be around 15 combos. So largely I'm ahead behind here around 20-ish combos. And I'm going to be ahead of his 9s, possibly 10s, 8x, 7x hands. Just trying to think if I want to check raise this hand. Yeah, I might lean towards a check call actually. Yeah.
Check.
Okay, so the options here now are mostly to check. However, when he chooses the option to check call rather than check raise, he doesn't necessarily have too many flushes or overpairs in his range. He would have to be balancing like pretty well. So I think he is overly comprised of hands that are in the Broadway region, some of which contain a club. So there's a lot of ace king, ace queen, ace jack with a club, potentially some hands like jack 10 of non-clubs or diamonds. He also has hands like 7Xs. So what will happen here is we are going to be forced to check and then be in a spot where, because of his river sizings, we will be having a lot more information based on his range. So he wouldn't necessarily, like if my read is right and I'm clairvoyant versus his range, then he wouldn't be able to bet too big on rivers because it wouldn't represent the range that I'm assigning him. Now, I could be wrong, but I just think that I'm gonna be more right than wrong here. So obviously we wanna be dodging some broadways, and then also not facing a small bet. So if we dodge broadways and face a big bet, I think I'm gonna hero call. Otherwise, we're just gonna race to showdown. Check.
So the reason I was hesitating on the turn is because I was trying to debate if Chin will start taking the majority of his range and start betting hands like 9s, 10s, 8x. I'm just trying to find his other bluffs. And just thinking about it more, he's definitely going to have Broadway coverage that has the club, largely the ace and the king, along with some queen X portion, which is going to give him around like 20-something extra combos of just the naked club version, as well as just Broadway in general that he's just going to be betting, which is going to include some maybe ace queen, although he 3-bets a king queen, queen jack, jack 10 type of holdings. With the queen coming, I think I could go ahead and bet and get some value from 8x as middle pairs holdings. Given that I think if I check here, he's gonna largely check back if I check. So I don't want that to happen. I don't anticipate a raise neither, unless he did hit the queen and he's gonna raise and try to get value out of what my range looks like right now. We're gonna bet 2/3 to not allow him to easily just raise if he's facing a smaller bet or half pot bet. I don't want to purposely put my specific hand in that situation. I'm gonna go 125. So.
125.
The queen of diamonds on the river is pretty interesting because it's floats that contain a queen would mostly be having the queen of diamonds or a club. Now, the ones that contain a club have incentive to bet unless it's ace queen with the queen of clubs. Yeah, I mean, the plan was to dodge Broadway card. Yeah, I'm done with this hand.
Gonna complete. Probably use this as one of my limp folds.
I have a very clear check. I just wanted to pause my music and talk so that he doesn't know that I have fucking 9-5 off.
So based on my construction, this should favor my range because I'm implementing a 100% limp, and I don't think Berkey has much coverage besides maybe some Jack 10 off, some hearts on this board, so I'm gonna start with a bluff.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I had the 9 or the 5 of hearts. With the 9 of hearts, I think that this is, I guess it doesn't really matter. I have an auto fold. I'm gonna have a lot of other hands I can call with. This smashes his limping range, so I'm just gonna muck our hand. With the students, it's more of like, this was my Play-Doh. So I kind of want to hear like how their thought process has evolved from the baseline of where I met them, right? So I have that context available to me where the audience won't necessarily. So I get to see how far they've come. I understand what they were like whenever they walked through the door day one. There will be times that they make a play that's just fine, that gets nitpicked or scrutinized. If you want to do this for a living and you plan to play on live streams, it's good to build that callus. And being able to put yourself in a training environment like this where, you know, you're under the bright lights, people are going to see that. This is the best simulation you could ever possibly have to actually going and sitting in PokerGo Studio or Poker Night in America or any other live stream environment where all of these same factors are going to weigh in on you.
All right. We actually got a hand to play here. So we're going to open this one up.
40.
Okay. Plastic suited. Michael's been relatively quiet and hasn't really had a ton of hands. I'd usually see this as a pretty great candidate for a 3-bet. I'm going to go ahead and fold. So if this hand was suited, I'll play it, or if late position opened and I perceive them wide. Lukich hasn't played that much. He could be using that to his advantage, but I'm not gonna over-level myself. Just gonna keep it simple and just dish this hand. Well, I think his range is probably tighter than normal, and this hand sucks.
King 6 off, gonna be a fold. Just want to briefly explain. Facing 4x from first position, we get to be like pretty selective. I wouldn't necessarily be defending the same range versus 2.5 or 3, so pretty natural fold here. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the bigger leaks from like live players is like when you're facing 4x or, you know, maybe even sometimes bigger in these live games, especially lower stakes, facing 4x, like you have to be very selective from the blind. There's a hand I'm going to be opening pretty much 100 from here and be defending to 3-bets at pretty appropriate frequency. I know I said I was going to use a sliding scale of raises, so I'm going to stick to now a $30 open rather than the 25 from under the gun.
30.
I have a hand here that can play nicely in a 3-bet range. I'm probably gonna, chin's gonna be super wide here on the button. He's probably gonna be opening at least half of his hands. So I think I can put a 3-bet in here and shed out a lot of his hands pre-flop here too. So I'm gonna make it go 125.
125.
So this is a spot where I could play similarly. The hand is pretty valuable, so putting in a 4th bet is kind of a negative. I would be over 4-betting at a fair frequency. There's pros and cons. So if he's 3-betting a linear range, 9-8 of hearts is a pretty big negative. simply because it's interlocking equity with his linear range, which is what I think he has a lot. So that's the negative of calling. The negative of 4-betting is that I'm not necessarily, like, effectively, like, the negative of 4-betting is that I have 9 high, so I don't block any of his value. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to call and then use some flop raises in my strategy that negates a lot of his linear portion of his range and play it that way.
I'm gonna have, well, Chin's gonna be fairly discounted in the amount of ace kings, kings, aces that he has. I have all of those in my range, but he's gonna have 10s and 8s. He's gonna have a lot of continues on his board. Gut shots, straight draws, he's got a lot of club coverage. My hand is just at the very, very bottom of my range. I don't even have, let's see, I don't think I have a club. Yeah, no, I don't even have a backdoor. I have my only backdoor here are, really crappy backdoor straight draws. So I'm not going to be betting all of my range on this flop anyways. I'm gonna likely split this into some bets, some check raises, some check calls, and some check folds, and this just happens to fall within a check fold range, so I'm gonna check.
Kind of a board that I expect a lot of checking on. I think this is a board that runs rather symmetrical as it pertains to his pre-flop construction linearly. I think that this is going to be a pure check back play. And then I would be evaluating sizes and then probably calling some turns. This is a very similar hand to a hand played earlier versus Nick in a different season of the show. So we'll play it accordingly. Check.
All right, so Chin's check back tells me that he probably has some type of showdown value. He's probably checking back some of his weaker King X, definitely hands like 10X that he has, like Jack 10, Queen 10. I would expect him to bet with some of his stronger hands and some of his draws here. So that said, still, the 3 doesn't improve me, and I still think he's going to have a lot of continues in his range here. So I'm going to stick with the plan of check folding. I'm going to be pretty protected on this street as well anyways. I would have checked a lot of pretty good showdown hands on the flop too, so I'm going to check.
Once he chooses double check here, my range is rather uncapped. I think that for him to construct a double check raise spot, I think is pretty interesting. However, I still fall pretty far down in my distribution. So the question is, do I want to bet for protection or not? I think the answer is no. Well, let's see. I will have hands like 10X's that need more protection. So I think that if I want to release the showdown value of my hand here, I have to choose a pretty large sizing, but doesn't necessarily fall in line with the incentive of my hand. I think there's a spot where there's a pretty clear check. I'm going to have a lot of availability to bet here. So I don't have much incentive to do anything else but check. Check.
All right, so when Chin checks back again, I think he's pretty restricted to having hands with pretty poor showdown value. So that could be hands like pocket pairs, 10x, 8x. I don't think he has really any king x in his range after he checks back the flop and the turn, as well as just a lot of just complete misses on this board. So, hands like 7-6, 8-7. Well, I guess 8-7 has a hand now. So, I'm trying to find a potential. I think a bet gets called here, unless he has absolutely nothing in his hand. I think I'm gonna check this. There's a chance I think ace high is good here, but I'm not really sure I could actually put a bet out right now because I'm not sure what worse calls me, and I don't think anything better folds. Even if he has like a 3, I don't think he's folding to any bet here on the river. So I'm going to check and see what Chin does.
So, kind of what I was saying was like true. Like, players tend to over 3-bet small blind, so him having ace-9 off there is definitely incentivizing me to construct an aggressive 4-bet frequency. The problem, of course, is that 9-8 suited is too valuable. If I had something like 9-7 suited that was less valuable, probably good.
I'm from the DC area. I play mostly 2-5 and 5-10 at the DC casinos or Maryland Live casinos. So I've been a member of various training sites over the last few years and was getting a little bit discouraged, and I happened to come across an interview with Berkey last fall. It wasn't even poker related. It was very much like a lot of things what Berkey says is very macro level concepts of how we actually learn different skills or concepts or whatever, and started researching Solve For Why and signed up for the primer course, signed up for the academy, and have been really diving into the rabbit hole ever since.
Got it.
Okay, so Lukich is going to get saved by his position here.
Hold your hand. Fold.
Here's the thing what he's thinking. He's thinking that he could be up against Jack 10, which is very, very problematic. I know that we told him to be sticky, and I like the line that he's taken up until this point, but this is where I think like he's deferring to theoretical solver too much, where it's just basically saying like if you're leading this hand and then folding to aggression, you just don't have any lead calls.
Yeah.
But like, so what?
He
just doesn't have any flop raises either.
Look at open jams.
It was the Jack of Diamonds.
Yeah, I still call.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me get camera 4. Yeah, there we go.
Chin's such a troll.
I do a lot of self-study, and I think that's another area where Solve For Why has really helped me out is, I don't want to be, spoon-fed a curriculum of, individual micro spots. You're not going to see a lot of videos on the training site of how to c-bet on this specific board texture or anything, where you might see a lot of that on a lot of other training sites. But the game is massive, and I think what Solve For Why does really, really well is kind of explore all parts of the game so that you're comfortable when you kind of go to different parts of the game tree that you're not really as familiar in.
Well, Sam 3-bet ace-9 off. It's gonna skew things a little bit image-wise. As far as this hand, I'm gonna open and see where we go.
40.
All right, this has been my first defendable hand. I don't see any reason to 3-bet here. Just gonna call. All right, so this is a bit of a neutral texture. I actually flopped pretty big in the sense of, I guess, my continuance range. It's a little poor in the sense that he won't have any nut flush draws to just kind of trip off with. But I basically have what serves as one of my lower ranking bluff catchers and one of my higher ranking semi-bluffs. That said, he's gonna flop a lot of equity on this texture as well. I expected to go check at some frequency, but even when he follows through with the bet, dependent upon sizing, I'm much more likely to just take a check call with this line. I still improve at a pretty high frequency and in a way that can kind of get the best of him when he is stabbing with like ace 10, ace queen, ace king, and we turn an ace.
So this neutral board texture is gonna hit me and Burke fairly often. If I thought he was an overfolder, I would just go ahead and bet my hand, just for the sake of somebody being fit to fold. And my hand performs rather poorly going forward. Me attempting to bet this hand now when the opponent does defend pretty often, it's just gonna be poor going forward. Especially since I don't block anything relevant. I'm not gonna be able to block any relevant nuts on runouts and stuff like that. I'm also gonna have better hands and candidates myself, such as like queen 10 for the gutty, king 10, 10, 9, the regular draws, as well as overcards that will suit me better. This hand is just gonna remain as a check, give up all the way. Hopefully we find the 6, see what happens. I don't even have the spade either, so yeah.
Okay, this is a really good card for us. I don't think Fausto is super protected when he checks back, at least not on this particular card. I would anticipate the vast majority of his overpairs would begin betting. I do think that he'll have 10s and 9s in range when he checks back, and that's kind of a reason for me not to go off here through the betting tree. I still have a reasonably good bluff catcher that just kind of went up in value, but I'm just trying to determine if it has any merit to begin bluffing against hands like 9s or 10s. I think the way that this plays out is his top of range really is like pocket 9s, pocket 10s, and if he chooses to start to bet this particular card, it's very easy to just range him as delays with give-ups. So hands like 6, 7 suited, whatever the case may be, that possibly picked up hearts. You know, some ace highs that are trying to deny, as well as some potential go-offs like king, queen that were just delaying. So I think I have a pretty clear check call. And I'll probably have to check call twice on non-heart rivers and non-king or queen rivers.
So specifically this jack rolling off would have allowed me to bluff catch actually instead of folding with my hand. Especially since my 6 is super alive now if I were to boat up. And if a jack comes out, then it gives me some kind of bluff catcher. So basically when I'm bluff catching, I would have targeted his ace highs that he's largely gonna be defending from the big blind, as well as his regular draws that miss, like the 9, 10 and the spades. That being said, I could bet to deny, but given the line, there's not much merit to it. So we're just gonna go ahead and check and largely look for calls on the river if he does decide to bet for whatever reason.
Okay, that's a range card for Fausto, but it is the spade, which I do possess. So now I think my hand shifts from bluff catcher to bluffing candidate. Obviously, I have enough showdown value here to just check and win against his ace highs. So he'll have ace queen, ace 10 high here at some frequency. His 9s and 10s that chose to double delay are also just going to delay again. I'm going to naturally lose to those. But pocket 7s may feel the need to start bluffing here. Any give-ups that he may have had, like 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever the case may be, may also find themselves betting here. I think that the line of attack here is check, attempt to showdown and win. But if I do face a half pot bet or smaller, I need to be coming with like a 1.5 or 2x pot check raise. I'm still pretty uncapped. I have a lot of king X in my range. I certainly have nut flushes given that I hold the ace of spades. So I also block 8s full. I pretty much just put him in the cage where he would have to really level up to call me with, you know, king, queen and a spade or ace, king, no spade.
Check, check.